The moment the human was summoned, the stars above Earth went silent. No alarms rang, no cities shook. Yet across the galaxy, ancient systems awakened, because something impossible had just been approved. Ethan Cole was an ordinary human by every known measure. He was a deep space systems engineer, trained to repair satellites and monitor signals, not to meet queens or change destinies. On that day, he was alone in an orbital station, floating between blue Earth and endless black, checking a dead signal that should not exist. The signal was old, older than any human technology, yet it spoke in perfect clarity. It did not ask, it commanded. Before Ethan could react, light wrapped around him, not harsh or painful, but warm and heavy, like gravity itself choosing him. The station vanished, Earth vanished, and reality folded inward. When the light faded, Ethan stood on polished black stone that reflected the sky above. That sky was not blue. It was violet, filled with massive rings of light and slow-moving stars. Tall figures stood in rows around him, their forms elegant and powerful, their eyes glowing softly. At the far end of the hall sat the queen. She was not small and she was not gentle. Her presence pressed down on the air itself, making every breath feel important. Golden armor flowed like liquid metal over her body, and a crown of living crystal hovered above her head. Ethan did what humans had always done when facing the unknown. He stood still and observed. The queen spoke, and her voice echoed inside his mind rather than his ears. "Human," she said, "you have crossed a threshold no other of your kind has crossed before." Murmurs spread through the hall. Some were curious, others angry, and a few were afraid. Ethan slowly lifted his head. "I did not come by choice," he said calmly. "But if I am here, then someone wanted me here." The hall grew quiet. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in interest. "Your kind is young," she said, "fragile, divided, and loud. And yet," she continued, "you survive where others vanish." She rose from her throne, and with each step forward, the floor glowed beneath her feet. "You adapt," she said. "You resist. You refuse to kneel, even when you should." Ethan felt it then. This was not a meeting. This was a test. The queen stopped a few steps away from him, towering but controlled. "Tell me, human," she asked, "what does your species value most?" Ethan did not answer immediately. He thought of Earth, of wars and kindness, of fear and hope, of people who broke and rebuilt again and again. "We value choice," he said, "the right to decide who we become." A ripple moved through the gathered aliens. Some looked shocked, others offended. The queen smiled, just slightly. "Then you understand why you are here," she said. With a gesture of her hand, an image appeared in the air. It showed a young alien woman, her posture strong but her eyes uncertain. "She is my daughter," the queen said. "She will rule after me." The image shifted, showing warships burning and entire systems collapsing. "Our empire stands at the edge of extinction," the queen continued. "Enemies surround us, and tradition binds us." She looked directly at Ethan. "To unite the old powers, my daughter must marry. But every candidate seeks control, not balance." The hall fell into deep silence. Then the queen asked the question that would echo across galaxies. "Are you ready?" she said slowly. "To become my daughter's husband, human?" Ethan felt the weight of history crash onto his shoulders. This was not about love. This was about survival, power, and the unknown strength of humanity. He did not answer yet, because somewhere deep inside him, something ancient and human stirred, and the galaxy waited. Before the story continues, remember to gently support this journey by subscribing to the channel, so you do not miss what happens next. Ethan finally took a breath, and in that breath, the future of two civilizations began to change. The silence after the queen's question did not fade. It grew heavier. Even the glowing walls seemed to dim, as if the palace itself was waiting for Ethan's answer. Ethan remained still, not because he was fearless, but because panic would solve nothing. He had learned long ago that humans survived not by strength alone, but by thinking when fear tried to take control. Around him, the alien nobles watched closely. Some saw him as a tool, some saw him as an insult, and some already imagined his death. The queen lifted her hand, and the pressure eased slightly. "You do not have to answer now," she said. "A rushed choice leads to broken empires." With another gesture, the floor beneath Ethan shifted. Light rose like mist, forming solid ground beneath his feet. In seconds, the grand hall dissolved, replaced by a wide balcony overlooking an alien city. The city stretched endlessly, built in tall spirals and floating platforms. Energy rivers flowed through the air, connecting towers like veins of light. Ships moved silently between levels, their shapes smooth and sharp at the same time. "This is Aurelian," the queen said beside him. "The heart of our empire." Ethan stared, not hiding his amazement. Earth had wonders, but this was a civilization that had mastered space without destroying itself. At least not yet. "You wonder why a human," the queen said. "Out of all species." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "There must be stronger choices." The queen looked at the city, not at him. "Strength destroys," she replied. "Control corrupts. Our rivals rule through fear." She turned toward him, her eyes sharp. "Humans are different. You fight each other endlessly. And yet, when extinction comes, you unite." Ethan thought of Earth's history, how humanity only looked up when the ground beneath them burned. She was not wrong. As they spoke, unseen eyes followed them. Deep within the palace, hidden chambers activated. Ancient machines analyzed Ethan's presence. Some readings spiked beyond expected limits. Far away, a council of shadowed figures received alerts. "A human has entered the succession path." One voice hissed, "That must not be allowed." Back on the balcony, the queen raised her hand again. The air shimmered, and a doorway formed from pure light. "Come," she said. "You will meet my daughter." Ethan felt his heartbeat quicken. This meeting felt more dangerous than the throne room, because politics could be studied, but people could not. They stepped through the light. The world shifted smoothly, not violently. They emerged into a vast training chamber. At its center stood the princess. She held a glowing blade, its edge vibrating with contained energy. Her stance was perfect, her breathing controlled. She moved with speed that bent the air itself. Combat drones attacked from every direction. She destroyed them one by one, precise and efficient. Power without waste. Ethan watched silently. This was not a sheltered royal. This was a weapon raised to rule. The princess finally stopped, sensing the presence behind her. She turned, her eyes locking onto Ethan instantly. For a brief moment, neither spoke. "You are smaller than I expected," she said, her voice calm but cold, "and louder than your silence suggests." Ethan almost smiled. "I get that a lot," he replied. The queen observed closely. This was another test. The princess circled Ethan slowly, studying him. "You smell like fear," she said, "but not weakness." Ethan met her gaze. "Fear keeps us alive," he said. "We just do not let it choose for us." Something flickered in her eyes, surprise or curiosity. Before she could respond, alarms echoed through the chamber. Not loud, but deep and urgent. The queen's expression hardened. "They move faster than expected," she said. The princess turned sharply. "The council," she said. "They will not accept this." Ethan felt the shift in the air. This was no longer a royal proposal. This was the opening move of a silent war. Far above the city, hidden fleets powered their weapons. Ancient treaties cracked, and one human stood at the center of a storm he never asked for. Ethan took a slow breath. He did not know the rules. He did not know the enemy, but he knew one thing. Humanity had never survived by stepping back. The alarms did not scream. They pulsed, slow and heavy. like a giant heartbeat warning the city of danger. The princess turned toward the queen, her jaw tight. "They are calling an emergency council," she said. "That means they already chose a side." Ethan looked between them. "Who are they?" he asked. "And why does it feel like I just walked into a trap?" The queen did not answer immediately. She waved her hand, and the training chamber sealed itself, layers of energy forming invisible walls. "The High Council," she said at last. "7 houses, older than this throne. They claim to protect balance." Her voice hardened. "In truth, they protect their power." Far away, inside a dark circular chamber, the High Council gathered. Their forms appeared as tall shadows wrapped in shifting light. At the center floated a single symbol, the Empire's crest, cracked down the middle. "A human," one counselor said, his voice sharp, "summoned into royal bloodlines." "This breaks every law," another replied. "If humans enter succession, our control ends." A third voice spoke, calm but dangerous. "Then the human must be removed." Back in the palace, the princess walked toward Ethan, stopping closer than before. "You should leave," she said quietly. "This place will kill you before it crowns you." Ethan studied her face. Behind the strength, he saw exhaustion. Behind the confidence, isolation. "If I leave," he said, "what happens to you?" She hesitated only for a second. "Then I marry one of them," she said, "and become a ruler in name only." The queen watched this exchange carefully. Ethan was not trained for court politics, yet he asked the one question none of them dared to ask. The floor beneath them shifted again. The walls became transparent, revealing the city below. Ships now moved faster, their paths sharp and alert. "They are mobilizing," the queen said. "Not openly, but enough to send a message." Ethan felt the weight of it all. This was not about him. He was a symbol that humans were no longer distant observers, a symbol that the old order could be challenged. Suddenly, the air twisted. A figure appeared without warning, cloaked in dark energy. Royal guards reacted instantly, weapons raised. "Stand down," the queen ordered. "This one has permission." The cloaked figure bowed slightly. "Your Majesty," he said, "the council demands the human be surrendered for evaluation." The princess laughed once, cold and sharp. "Evaluation," she said. "That is what they call execution now." The messenger did not deny it. Ethan stepped forward before either royal could speak. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked. The figure turned toward him. "Then you become an enemy of the Empire." Ethan nodded slowly. "Humans are familiar with that role," he said. The queen raised her hand, stopping further escalation. "The human is under my protection," she declared. "Any move against him is a move against the throne." The chamber vibrated slightly. Even distant systems felt that declaration. The cloaked figure stiffened. "As you command," he said. "But know this. Not all wars begin with fleets." He vanished as suddenly as he had appeared. Silence returned, heavier than before. The princess exhaled slowly. "You just painted a target on yourself," she said to Ethan. Ethan looked out at the city again. On Earth, he had fixed machines. Now he was standing between powers that shaped galaxies. "I did not choose this," he said, "but I will not hide from it." The queen studied him closely. Many had claimed courage before. Few showed it when the cost was clear. "Then you must understand what comes next," she said. "You will be tested. Not by strength, not by weapons, but by truth." She gestured, and the air filled with moving images. Scenes of ancient wars, empires rising and falling, species erased because they refused to change. "Every suitor before you failed," the queen said. "They sought power. They feared losing control." She turned to Ethan. "If you walk this path," she warned, "you may lose your world." Ethan's chest tightened. Earth felt suddenly very far away. "And if I do not?" he asked. The princess answered this time, her voice low. Then this empire burns. Above the palace, the stars shifted slightly. Unseen fleets aligned. Old alliances cracked quietly. And in that fragile moment, a single human choice began to pull the future toward war. The queen's words lingered like a shadow that refused to fade. If you walk this path, you may lose your world. Ethan did not answer, not because he had no response, but because he finally understood the scale of the game. This was not a marriage proposal. It was a calculated gamble using humanity as a living variable. The queen turned and began to walk, her steps steady. "Come," she said. "You need to see what is truly at stake." The princess followed, silent now, her earlier sharpness replaced by focus. Ethan stayed between them as they moved through corridors that seemed to grow from light itself. They entered a chamber unlike any before. It was vast and dark, with a single glowing sphere floating at its center. Inside the sphere, stars moved like living creatures. "This is the archive core," the queen said. "It holds the recorded futures our seers have mapped." Ethan frowned. "Futures," he repeated. "More than one." The queen nodded. "Thousands," she said. "Most end in collapse." With a motion of her hand, the sphere expanded. Images surrounded them, fast and overwhelming. Alien worlds burning, mass evacuations, silent stars where life once existed. Ethan felt a chill. "These futures," he said carefully. "Where do humans appear?" The queen hesitated. For the first time since he had met her, uncertainty crossed her face. "In most," she said, "humanity is erased early." Ethan's breath caught. "Erased by who?" The princess answered, "By us." The words struck harder than any weapon. "In timelines where the empire survives," the princess continued, "humanity is considered unstable, a risk that must be removed before it grows." Ethan felt anger rise, hot and sharp. "And in the timelines where I accept," he asked, "what happens then?" The sphere shifted again, slower now, clearer. In those visions, human technology evolved alongside alien systems. Joint fleets defended borders. Enemies hesitated, uncertain. "But," the queen added quietly, "these futures come at great cost." The images darkened. Assassinations, civil wars, entire houses wiped out from within the empire. "The High Council fractures," the queen said. "They will not surrender power peacefully." Ethan clenched his fists. "So this is blackmail," he said. "Accept, and humans survive. Refuse, and you erase us quietly." The queen met his gaze without flinching. "Call it survival," she replied. Before Ethan could respond, the sphere suddenly flickered. Alarms returned, sharper this time. Not warnings, commands. A voice echoed through the chamber, distorted but clear. "Unauthorized fleet movement detected." The princess moved instantly. "They are making their move," she said. "Not openly. Testing your resolve." The chamber lights dimmed as a tactical display formed in the air. Several council-controlled fleets shifted positions near the Empire's outer systems, close enough to threaten, far enough to deny intent. "They want you scared," the princess said to Ethan. "They want you to run." Ethan stared at the display. On Earth, this would be called a Cold War. Here it was a countdown. "Do they know about the archive?" he asked. The queen's expression darkened. "They suspect," she said. "And if they seize it." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Suddenly, the room shook, not violently, but enough to feel real. A distant impact echoed through the palace. "Minor breach," a system voice announced. "Defense drones engaged." The princess turned sharply toward Ethan. "This is no longer theory," she said. "They are willing to spill blood." Ethan took a slow breath, grounding himself. Humans had always been slow to act, but once pushed they adapted fast. "If they see me as the weakness," he said, "then let me be the pressure point." Both royals looked at him. I want access, Ethan continued, to your systems, to your history, to how your enemies think. The queen studied him for a long moment. You plan to fight without weapons, she said. Ethan nodded. That is how humans survive giants. Another tremor ran through the palace, stronger this time. Somewhere, far beyond the walls, a line had been crossed. The queen finally spoke, her voice steady but heavy. Very well, human. If you walk this path, she said, there is no return. Ethan looked once more at the stars trapped inside the archive core, then at the princess, who was watching him with something close to respect. Humans, he said quietly, never evolved to turn back. And as distant fleets aligned and ancient powers prepared for betrayal, the Empire took its first irreversible step toward war. The decision, once spoken, changed the rhythm of the palace. Lights shifted to deeper tones, security fields strengthened, and every corridor began to whisper with silent urgency. Ethan was no longer a guest. He was a variable, and variables frightened empires. The queen granted him limited access at first, not out of distrust but caution. You will see what no human has ever seen, she warned, and what many of my own people were never meant to know. They led Ethan into a sealed command vault buried deep beneath the palace. The air felt older here, heavy with history and secrets. Massive crystal interfaces rose from the floor, alive with flowing symbols. This is where the council believes they control us, the princess said. But they do not know everything. Ethan approached one of the interfaces. The system reacted instantly, its patterns shifting as if sensing his presence. To everyone's surprise, the symbols slowed, then stabilized. That should not happen, one of the royal technicians whispered. Ethan frowned. It is not reading me as a threat, he said. It is reading me as unknown. The queen's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Continue, she said. As Ethan studied the data streams, something unsettling became clear. The High Council was not just resisting change. They were planning a controlled collapse. They are letting border systems fall on purpose, Ethan said, blaming external enemies, while positioning themselves as the only solution. The princess's expression hardened. They would sacrifice millions, she said, to keep their power. Ethan nodded slowly. Humans have done this before, he said, and it never ends well. Suddenly, the vault lights flickered. A warning pulse moved through the interfaces. Unauthorized override detected. The system announced. The queen turned sharply. They found this vault, she said. Before anyone could react, the room filled with a low vibration. A digital presence forced its way into the system. Not brute force, but precision. A council insignia formed in the air, cracked but glowing. You have gone too far, Your Majesty, a voice said, calm and cold. The human must be surrendered. The princess stepped forward, her hand near her weapon. This vault is beyond your authority, she said. The voice did not waver. Authority, it replied, is decided by survival. Ethan watched the data carefully. Patterns repeated. Timing gaps appeared. They are bluffing, he said quietly. This is a projection. They cannot fully breach the vault. The queen looked at him sharply. Are you certain? Yes, Ethan replied. They are testing reactions. As if angered by his analysis, the projection intensified. Human, the voice said, you do not belong here. Your species is chaos. Ethan leaned closer to the interface. Chaos is just change you cannot control, he said. For a brief moment, the system paused. The projection flickered. The princess noticed it too. You disrupted it, she said. Ethan exhaled slowly. I did not fight it, he replied. I confused it. Alarms suddenly screamed throughout the vault. This time, there was no calm tone, only urgency. Multiple breaches detected. The system announced. Internal sabotage confirmed. The queen clenched her fists. They have allies inside the palace, she said. The lights cut out completely. Emergency fields activated, bathing the room in red light. From the shadows, movement, not council projections, real figures. Elite enforcers emerged, weapons humming softly. Their armor bore no insignia, but everyone knew who sent them. The princess moved instantly, positioning herself in front of Ethan. "Stay behind me," she ordered. Ethan's heart raced. He had no weapon, no armor, only his mind. He scanned the room quickly. Energy conduits, power nodes, patterns. "Your vault defenses are predictable," Ethan said urgently. "They expect resistance, not redirection." The queen looked at him, understanding flashing in her eyes. "What do you need?" she asked. 10 seconds, Ethan replied. The enforcers advanced, slow and confident. They believed the outcome was already decided. The princess raised her blade, energy crackling. 5 seconds, she said. Ethan placed his hands on the interface, not commanding, not attacking, but asking. The system responded. Light surged, pathways shifted. At the exact moment the enforcers fired, the floor beneath them vanished, dropping them into a containment field below. Silence returned, broken only by heavy breathing. The queen stared at Ethan. "You just rewrote a royal defense system," she said. Ethan stepped back, hands shaking slightly. "No," he said. "I just reminded it to adapt." But before relief could settle, a final alert appeared, flashing red. High Council escalation detected. Far beyond the palace, fleets were no longer hiding, weapons powered fully, treaties shattered, and the quiet political war finally began to. The stars above Aurelian shifted from calm patterns to sharp defensive alignments. Across the empire, long-dormant weapons awakened, and ancient battle codes were unlocked. This was no longer a struggle of influence. It was a test of survival. In the command vault, the queen stood tall, her presence steady despite the chaos spreading outward. "The council has revealed itself," she said. "There is no return to shadows now." A massive tactical display filled the chamber, showing fleets on the move. Council-controlled armadas advanced from hidden positions, their numbers carefully calculated. Not enough to start open war, but enough to force surrender. "They want me handed over," Ethan said quietly, "as proof that the throne can still be controlled." The princess nodded, her grip tight on her blade. "And if we refuse," she said, "they will fracture the empire piece by piece." Ethan studied the display. The formations felt familiar, cautious, layered, designed to intimidate rather than strike. "They are afraid," Ethan said, "not of your fleets, but of what humans represent." The queen turned toward him. "Explain." "Humans grow fast," Ethan replied, "not just in numbers, but in ideas. You cannot predict us because we rewrite our own limits." As if the universe wanted to prove his point, a new alert appeared. Unknown signal detected. The signal did not originate from council space, nor from imperial space. It came from far beyond map territory. The princess frowned. "That region is dead," she said. "No civilization survives there." Ethan leaned closer, his breath catching. The signal pattern was wrong, too structured to be natural, too efficient to be random. "This is not council tech," he said, "and it is not yours." The room grew colder. The queen's voice dropped. "Then the seers were right," she said. "There is a third force." The display shifted, revealing shadowy shapes moving between stars. Not fleets, but something worse. "They have been waiting," the queen continued, "waiting for the empire to fracture." The princess looked at Ethan sharply. "And humans," she said, "are the trigger." Before Ethan could respond, the system blared another alert, louder than all before. "Border world lost." The image of a distant planet appeared. Its surface darkened, cities silent, Energy signatures erased in seconds. No weapons fire detected. The system added. Population vanished. The chamber fell silent. This was beyond war. This was extinction. Ethan felt a familiar tightening in his chest. Human history was filled with moments like this, when something unknown appeared, and survival demanded unity. They do not want territory, Ethan said slowly. They want absence. The Queen closed her eyes briefly. Then every delay has cost lives, she said. She turned to Ethan, her gaze sharp and resolute. You said humans survive giants, she said. Show me. Ethan straightened, fear and resolve mixing into something stronger. Humans do not win by matching strength, he said. We win by changing the rules. He pointed to the display. Your fleets are built to fight known enemies. These things are unknown. The princess caught on quickly. So we stop thinking like rulers, she said, and start thinking like survivors. Ethan nodded. Share everything, he said. No secrets between species. No hidden chains. The Queen hesitated for only a heartbeat, then nodded. Do it, she commanded. Across the Empire, restricted archives unlocked. Human scientists on distant Earth suddenly received impossible data. Alien engineers stared at human war simulations that ignored tradition. The Council reacted instantly. They broadcast threats, declared the throne compromised. But it was too late. The human variable had spread. As the third force advanced silently, erasing worlds without sound, something new began to form. Not an alliance, but a fusion. Ethan watched the stars with clenched fists. This was no longer about marriage or crowns. This was about whether the galaxy would learn to adapt or vanish. Part 7. The galaxy did not end in fire. It ended in silence. Across dozens of systems, stars still burned, planets still turned. But life held its breath, waiting to see if it would be erased next. The third force moved like a shadow with purpose. No speeches, no demands, only absence where worlds once lived. In the heart of Aurelian, Ethan stood before a gathering unlike any before. Human scientists appeared as holograms, tired but focused. Alien commanders stood beside them, no longer hiding distrust. Fear had done what politics never could. It had united them. They erase patterns, Ethan said, his voice steady despite the weight he carried. They do not conquer. They reset. A human scientist nodded. Like a cosmic cleanup. The princess stepped forward, her armor marked from battles that never officially happened. Then how do we fight something that does not want to rule? She asked. Ethan looked at her, then at the Queen. You do not fight it directly, he said. You make it fail its purpose. He brought up the final projection. A network of stars, humans and aliens intertwined through shared systems. Shared signals, shared chaos. It looks for order to erase, Ethan continued. So we become unpredictable. The Queen slowly understood. You want to break destiny itself, she said. Yes, Ethan replied. Humans survived by being impossible to fully map. We change faster than extinction can calculate. The plan was risky. It required trust and sacrifice. Human worlds opened their systems completely. Alien empires shared technologies they had guarded for millennia. The old rules collapsed, not in war, but in choice. The High Council tried one last move. They broadcast a message across the empire, declaring the Queen unfit, declaring Ethan a parasite. But no one listened, because while they spoke, another border world survived. The Shadow Force entered, paused, and retreated, confused by overlapping signals, chaotic defenses, and evolving patterns. For the first time, extinction hesitated. The princess stood beside Ethan on the highest balcony of the palace. Stars reflected in her eyes. You were never meant to be my husband, she said softly. Ethan nodded. I know. You were meant to be a bridge, she continued, between what we were and what we must become. Below them, the city glowed brighter than ever, not because it was safe, but because it chose to stand together. The queen watched from a distance, her empire forever changed. She had ruled through tradition, now she ruled through trust. When the final reports arrived, they did not announce victory. They announced survival. The third force did not vanish, but it slowed, watching, learning, and for the first time in countless cycles, the galaxy was no longer predictable. Ethan prepared to return to Earth, not as a conqueror, not as a king, but as a messenger. Before he left, the princess placed a hand over her heart. "You will always have a place here," she said. Ethan smiled, tired but sincere. "Humans do not settle easily," he replied, "but we never forget who stood with us." As light wrapped around him once more, carrying him home, the queen spoke words that echoed far beyond the palace. "Let it be recorded," she said, "that humanity was not summoned to kneel, but to remind the stars